rescue, then I ask the question, okay, how did you rescue this number of students without apprehending one person, without being on the trail of these kidnappers and eventually getting them? So there are questions we really need to ask ourselves in this country. Is it that some persons are sponsoring these things to happen?
In fairness,
Is it that some persons are just deliberately making these things happen? So
amongst the issues brought up for Comrade Joe Ajero, one was terrorism financing. Terrorism financing was one of the points brought up against Joe Ajero. And we've said several times on this right that if you have people who you think are part of terrorism financing or part of bolstering the efforts of terrorists in the country, name them, bring points, get them, detain them. But what is very concerning is that the DSS, who has been called on the news as secret police, don't seem to be secret anymore. There's something discreet about how they invade offices. And before such invasion occurs, there should be so much proof, so much evidence that evidently the person who is invaded upon, the office invaded upon, would have their mouths shut, knowing full well that they have so much to cover. But it's very funny that we're seeing a SERAP office invaded. We are not told anything. There are just several allegations leveled against these groups without any accountability for the part of government.
It's really laughable.
And then we look at how the terrorists easily go to areas and get them. So when I say securities are top-notch in the country, I hope you understand sarcasm before you destroy your gadget or your TV set this morning, because it looks like we are going through turmoil.
Exactly.
Blessing had to have so much self-control. So thank you, Blessing, for holding on when I said securities are top-notch.
You know what's funny?
Because it's quite sad.
I'm not making a case for the NLC's president, Comrade Joe Ajero. If indeed he's involved in terrorism financing, felony, and every other thing that he has been accused of, he should be punished. He should be made to pay for his crimes. But then, why is it just the NLC president? Why is it some selected individuals that the DSS, the police, they're always going after? The former governor, what's his name again? The one that's been declared wanted. I'm trying to wrap my head around it now.
Okay.
Bello?
Bello, yeah.
Yes. The country, he's in this country, and till date, they've not been able to get him. Now, there are some persons that I feel they should be after. I'm not saying that going after the NLC president, if indeed.
No, but Mafawala Bello might be hiding, but Joe Ajero is easy to just go.
How is he hiding in the country? In this country, he's hiding in this country.
Look at what we're saying.
The DSS, like you said,
Yeah.
they ought to be a secret agency. When they're going about their operation, they should be, very discreet about it, but very efficient.
Yes.
That is their job, to find a culprit.
Intelligence gathering.
So how can you say a former governor in this country is in this country and you're saying he's hiding? Hiding where?
Somewhere, where he cannot be caught. But you can easily hold
They're just not
Joe
serious.
Ajero.
Our security agencies are just not serious. If they're serious, they would really channel their energy in the right place. Because what I see now is they are acting like politicians.
And what does this mean? Talk about politicians. How does this translate for the federal government? In barely 2 hours, when we heard about Joe Ajero's being abduction. I want to call it abduction because they said Joe Ajero at the NLC said it was not legal. So abduction according to the NLC. When he was detained 2 hours later, we heard about SERAP's invasion at the same speed of time. So it looks like anyone who speaks is held. And then Baya Anandoga came up and has been saying so much in defense of the federal government, which we expect him to do, notwithstanding. Yeah. So of his statement involved the fact that he said Joe Ajero was summoned and he did not honor the invitation by DSS, and he was on his way to the UK for a tour, for a particular meeting there at the UK. Now that's quite interesting to note. If that was true, evidence should be brought. Transparency should be so clear that Nigerians will even be angry against those being apprehended in such a manner. So this is just calling on the federal government to be more tactical about how it's going, chasing those that are seen to be involved in any act of criminalities or any act of terrorism, because we do not fully understand these particular persons. We should be hearing some particular names right now, like you just mentioned, Bello Matawale. We should be hearing that this man has been apprehended, this person has been caught, this one has been held, former governors. We should be hearing about these things. But now, if the EFCC was once seen as a political dog chasing those who are against the government in power, why the DSS now? Where is the integrity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? It looked to me that the reason Bawumia was coming out to make some proclamations was because this had a dent on the image of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the global scene. Because now, of course, Joe Ajero was going for a meeting on a global level to talk labor issues on a global level, and it was apprehended. It looked like it was embarrassing to the federal government, and that's why he was even making statements. On a normal day, things like this happen, we see no statement. Serap's Salvation, we've seen no statement from Bayo Onanuga. Instead, we are seeing DSS trying to say that they did not try to attack the office via any form of harassment or intimidation.
What were they looking for?
But you went there. You went there.
Exactly.
And if you went there,
Serap's office,
and you were
just the same
invading,
way they went to the NLC secretariat and said they were looking for a foreigner. So they should explain to us what they were looking for in Serap's office.
We're looking for documents, according
what
to
documents?
them. What documents? What exactly?
You know,
everybody
on
helped
X-Trend
authority
last
financing.
week, we talked about a journalist that's been, of course, he's wanted now by security agencies and the DSS. It's more like people who come out to talk, people who are vocal, people who come out to oppose the federal government. That's what it's looking like now. Okay, I'm not making a case for Comrade Joe Ajero, for Sarah, but it's looking like anybody who comes out to talk or anybody who comes out to oppose the federal government, after some time, they go after them.
Yeah.
That's what
we heard about the podium
case. Is this the democracy that we're practicing in the country? Is this democracy?
Let's not forget about the case. What Blessing was talking about, if you were part of us on Friday X-Trend, there was this case of the journalist
Udeni.
Yeah, Udeni, who's run away from the country. Matter of fact, he's hiding because right now he's been said to be part of a terrorism group. Meanwhile, a podium in that's the name, in Port Harcourt was picked by the DSS again. They went all the way down there to Port Harcourt, picked him at his hotel, and they didn't give any particular statement. They said they've been looking for him, that he shut his door. It was hard for him to open up his door. And when Udeni was being interviewed on a television station online, he made some statements which are very critical. He claimed that part of the things that they said that this podium was holding, the document podium was holding against the federal government, involved a document that showed allegations where the presidency, the federal government, some of them were in New York at a top-notch hotel with, dancers, exotic dancers, while even the son of the president, Sheyi, was right there at that hotel in New York, using monies for a particular fund in the country on agriculture.
And what's alarming is that he has also alleged they've tried to kill him twice.
Yes. So it gets very funny. It looks like anybody who speaks right now will be arrested. Whistleblowing is okay until it's done against the government. That's how funny it sounds. First of all, we saw whistleblowing on the news today in Enugu. People blew the whistle against how they've been selling dead meat, and the government is taking action. That's okay. The Federal Republic of Nigeria okays whistleblowing. In fact, at some point, they were giving out a particular big, humongous sum of money, for whistleblowers. But now, if you blow the whistle against government's recklessness, you are being chased like a thief, like a rat, stealing and eating documents of WAEC results in a house. It's quite alarming. And it looks like the presidency is becoming very authoritarian. That's the impression that is being created. It doesn't matter if Bayo Onanuga is saying that this man is a champion of protest, he's a civil rights activist. It doesn't seem that way. It looks like he's going after anyone who has anything different to say about the way affairs of this country is being run. And it's not like Nigeria is in a wuru. We're going through terrorism, we're going through starvation, and terrorism is affecting starvation because somehow farmers cannot go to farm to do what they do for us to eat, meaning that terrorists are just living la vida loca in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Well, we have less to say. We'll go to the streets. This morning, our presentation director suggested that we take this clip on insecurity in Nigeria. What's the street saying? That's what's next on Morning Ride. Stay with us.
seen a significant increase in the rate of insecurity in the country. Traveling from one point to another is not even sure. You're not even sure that you get to your destinations because of kidnappings here and there, thefts here and there. Well, there are so many things that the government can do to tackle the rate of insecurity in the nation. So we're here on the streets to find out your points, to find out your opinion on what you think should be done to tackle insecurity in Nigeria. Welcome to Street Talk. I am Chinazo Frances Uche of Fojama. Now let's hit the streets. How do you think governments can tackle insecurity in the nation?
By listening to their citizens and making sure their security officers are well trained.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
That's a good one. Thank you. How do you think government can tackle insecurity in the nation?
As the government, the aspect of insecurity in this state is becoming something else. So as for me, I think the government should improve on their security systems. They should put more checkpoints, and in short, they'll be checking not only the vehicles, individuals also moving. They should still at least try and be checking not only the vehicles, because sometimes they don't go with vehicles. They use their foot. So at least they should improve more. They should not just specialize on the vehicles alone in the aspect of security.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How do you think government should tackle insecurity in the nation? What do you think can be done?
Okay, for me, the number one point that the government have at hand is making sure there is a creation of job. You know, in Nigeria now, I know there are jobs, but maybe I think our youths, there are jobs that they don't like in this country. Maybe job that they feel like is so suffering and maybe out of they're educated and they'll now see themselves going to a polar job, you understand? Maybe creating suitable jobs for our youths, is an agent that can, play a very role there. And there are so many other things to do, helping poor people. But the main thing for me, is creating a job. So if there is a creation of job, I think it should help to tackle these insecurities in Nigeria.
Okay, because you believe that if jobs were created and there were more job opportunities, people would have no reason to go and steal, to go and rob, right?
Then maybe paying those that are already working well. Yes. For instance, me, I'm a student too, but I'm also working. I work in a private school as a teacher. If I'm being paid well, maybe for instance, I'll not have time to think of going to do prostitution or maybe to engage in other social vices. So that is it.
Okay, that's a good one. Thank you very much. How do you think governments should tackle insecurity in the nation?
Well, first, lots of the problems that we are facing in the world are traceable to economic problems. They are traceable to economic problems. And it is due to hardship, due to difficulty, that people do what they do. Yeah. So I think for starters, the first thing that the government should do to tackle insecurity is to work on the economic situation, the economic regression within the nation. If they can improve the economic situation within the nation, to a very large extent, I believe, without mincing words, that the insecurity within the nation will decrease, because no one in his right mind would risk his life, put his life in danger to involve himself in anything that would cost him his life. So most of those who do these things are doing them because there isn't any alternative for them and they need to survive. So that is my first opinion on the matter. The second opinion is, first, we need to work on our agencies. We need to work on the police. A lot of them are incorrigible. A lot of them are incorrigible. A lot of them are just after their pockets. And it would surprise you that lots of them even support what is happening within the nation. I don't mean to blow things out of proportion, because I have seen it firsthand. I have seen a situation wherein the police came to a robbery scene, and after they made an appearance, before the next minute, the same culprits that were saw, because I saw them from afar, was walking free on the road. I was staggered by the situation. So we need to work on the character, yes, the character, the quality of persons that we employ into the service, because most of them are the criminals themselves.
Right, thank you very much. How do you think government should tackle insecurity in the nation? What do you think can be done to reduce the rate of insecurity?
For me, I think that, this Nigeria now has a lot of problems at hand, understand? So I think Nigeria should install CCTV. They should copy all this outside country style, understand? So CCTV is very, very important, and police should act more. They should employ more policemen, and they should
employ more.
I mean, they should recruit. Yes. In fact, a lot of things. There are a lot of things. The main thing for this, the main thing that causes this kidnapping of a thing is hardship. Everywhere now, everywhere is hot. There's no money anywhere. It's $3. So many things. You and I know the problem in this Nigeria. You understand? So that's the reason why even the government themselves know what to do to stop all these things. The government, they are human beings. They know what to do to stop all this kidnapping of a thing that is happening everywhere. So let them try hard. But CCTV, see, number one thing, even all these African countries, neighboring countries, they have CCTV. It's very, very, very important. CCTV all over Nigeria. Even where, and they should put it where nobody will even know that it is there. So CCTV is very important, and they should organize this that monitor those things.
All right, thank you very much, sir. The federal government officials know what should be done, so they should do what needs to be done. But let's find out more opinions on the streets. So, Papa, what do you think government should do to tackle insecurity in the nation?
Number one, our government is stealing us. They are thieves. All of them are thieves. Okay. If the government can stop stealing us, I think insecurity will stop.
Okay, so government should stop stealing us.
Yes.
And then insecurity will stop. All right, thank you very much, sir. How do you think the government should tackle insecurity in the nation?
Well, government should try to put law that will lead to the formation of state policing, so that if state police are in place, the number of law enforcement agencies will now increase. With that, I believe if the number of police officers are much, the crime rate or insecurity in the society will go down, because in a situation whereby a crime is committed somewhere where there are enough police officers, they can easily apprehend the perpetrator of such acts. And in case of all these banditry and other things, you see, they are able to have their way, because the number of security officers, they are not enough. If there are enough security officers in place, I believe if an offense is committed somewhere within a limited period of time, because of the mass number of the officers, they'll be able to easily capture the perpetrator of such acts. So,
right. Thank you. So increase the number of security officers and also properly train these officers. Let's find out more on the street on what you think should be done to tackle insecurity in the nation. What do you think government can do to tackle insecurity in the country? What measures can be taken?
Well, so many people may have their own idea on how to define insecurity, but in a nutshell, situation like Nigeria, the major cause or causes of insecurity is as a result of unemployment. Simple put. So the best way government can tackle insecurity is by providing jobs for the youths. Simple put, because never mind, because of unemployment, people are engaging in different sectors, crimes and all these things. But to tell you, corruption do not serve anybody any good, including the practitioners. So what I'm trying to say that government should go back to their drawing board by trying to provide jobs for the youths. Maybe they can engage in something like agriculture. They can engage, all this manual labor, like, going into mechanics, going into micro, economics. I mean, MICRO, microeconomics, not macro. So, as a result, all hands will be on desk. And when all hands must have been on desk, insecurity will be drastically reduced. So, that is my bone of contention.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you.
How do you think government should tackle insecurity in the nation?
Security.
Insecurity.
In the nation.
Yes.
How they have to start working? There's no time again now. It remains small. When you're in a house, they will come and carry you. Yeah?
Okay. So what do you think they should do? What should they do, Gongo?
They will start it one by one. So many people are looking for job. They will employ people. At least some people I know. If you employ them in this job, they will give you, what are we talking? They are wasting time now. They are wasting time. You remain very small, though, because hungry is catching people. They will just come inside your house. Oh yeah, give me 500 now. If you don't give me, I'll kill you now. You have to go and look for it.
Yeah.
This security is everywhere. Yeah? It's everywhere. And I think this man there, let me not insult anybody. He's not doing any tangible thing about it.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Many have said that creating job opportunities would curb insecurity in the country. Some have also said that recruiting more police officers and making sure that they are well trained would curb insecurity. Some have also said that installing CCTV cameras in specific locations would curb insecurity. These are the many opinions that we have heard on today's edition of Street Talk. Till when we come your way again next time, this is Delta TV, the People's Pride, and I am Chinazo Frances Uche Afajama.
J-Mali make it juicy.
All right, we're still here, and it's quite interesting the things we saw on Street Talk this morning. People have really submitted that part of the challenges we face in this country in terms of our economy is hinged on insecurity. People cannot go to farms, people cannot do business when their lives is in jeopardy, when they're not sure about the next day. Now, once upon a time, Blessing, when we mentioned issues about insecurity, kidnapping and the likes, we thought it was only in places that are more rural. Those in urban areas felt a little bit at ease, maybe not entirely at ease, but they felt uncomfortable, knowing full well that, somehow these guys cannot come here. But the tenacity is changing. Kaduna was attacked. Patients, nurses were picked in a hospital. And when we think that this is happening far away in the country, not to be a bringer of fear, it's coming even here if actions are not taken. Remember that in some parts of Delta State, Farmers are complaining about invasion of their farms. It's looking like it's a minute thing. But little things grow in Nigeria. They don't go down, they grow. Especially because actions are not properly taken.
Francis, it is really scary when you hear about number of persons that can be kidnapped from a community, and you just ask yourself, how is it that these kidnappers or these bandits, like they are called, can go into a community, capture a number of persons, a large number of persons, and then move away from the community and travel to wherever they are going to without being apprehended. It is scary, and it's beginning to look like the security agencies, the federal government, the state governors are overwhelmed by what is happening. It's beginning to look like nothing can be done. If you look at how the respondents we had on Street Talk, from the way they were speaking, you could see that everybody's just tired of the situation. Everybody doesn't just know what to say or what to do. Every day we keep giving advice. Every day we keep saying this is what we think the federal government should do. This is what we think the security agencies should do. But then we're not seeing anything being put in place to make sure that things get better.
Yes.
So I just don't want to believe that there's nothing the federal government can do. There's nothing the security agencies can do, because it's beginning to look like, there's nothing they can do. It's out of their hands. We have police stations or police commands in every state. Every community should have a police station. But then you never hear anything from these people when a community is being attacked.
Yeah.
You just hear that, number of persons have been shot dead, number of persons have been kidnapped. Nothing from the police. The police doesn't come out to say, okay, this is what happened, this is what we are doing, we are trailing, or
These are the kidnappers.
After the kidnappers.
No, that was after the kidnappers, but when the kidnapped is released, everybody just forgets about the issue and we move on. On the 9th of September, that was on Monday, incidentally, it was the International Day to Protect Education from Attack. That was quite a big day. Incidentally, that was the day schools resumed, September 9. Many of the schools, apart from 10 in Oshimile South, resumed that day. We know that Nigeria is really gigantic when it comes to a country that has the education system being attacked. Matter of fact, while we were younger, we used to hear about Afghanistan, Sudan, as countries that faces such attacks. But it would be interesting to know that Nigeria is top in the continent as far as education being attacked is. We're just ahead of Sudan. I think we have about 85 recorded cases, while Sudan has a lesser number of cases. These are big issues that the country is going through. I don't call it singular. It's a plural issue. Insecurity in our farms, in our schools, they are just too much. Now, on Monday, schools resumed. Interestingly, when Blessing talked about what are we doing to save the situation, one thing is quite clear in Delta State. The Secretary of State government came up recently to attack centers, shopping malls, cinemas, schools, event centers. And his concern was that they should install surveillance cameras. It looks like it's quite an easy conversation. Since 2020, that particular law was enacted in Delta State. Yet, does a child's school have a surveillance camera? Now, we don't want these things to happen, but they could happen to anybody. However, when they happen, how can actions be taken? First, to apprehend the criminals or defaulters. Next, to avoid the recurrence of such situation that could save your child or that person's child. Yet schools have resumed, and I'm not sure many of them have surveillance cameras, enough to see those who go in and go out. How about our culture as a people? Are we quick to report suspicious cases to the police? How about the police? Are they friendly enough to accept such reports?
Exactly.
It's good that we see.
I think these ideas are beautiful. Installing,
surveillance cameras.
Community partnering with security agencies.
Yes.
That is beautiful. But Francis, the issue we're having in the country, I don't want to say something like cameras cannot resolve them, but really the security agencies need to sit up. I don't see them acting right. They need to sit up. The federal government, state governors have to be really interested about the security of their state and of the country. They really need to sit up, really.
Yeah, well, I will talk about that. I also want to talk about us too. Those are the things that we can do.
I heard a quote about a particular, community leader. It was alleged that he collects money from these bandits and allows them to come into his community to do what they want to do. to kidnap people. So these are the issues. The federal government, the state government, the traditional rulers. Those are the hems of affairs. Should sit up. They really should sit up.
You talk about the particular state in the country where the bandits have demanded the community pays them 50 million naira. And then we have Ajero and Sarah being invaded. I don't want to go into that again. I think it sounds like a broken record. But you know how much these things they hurt when we talk about them. I saw a colleague of mine outside the stage, blessing, left the entertainment scene as a broadcaster and got into breakfast show. And she has expressed depression from 1 o'clock to Nigeria, checking out the facts in Nigeria, knowing that Nigeria is leading when it comes to backwardness and pains and suffering, will just leave you under depression. You begin to see the pressure and you wonder why those at the helm of affairs don't feel this pain as much as you reading it. Those who have the power, we've given them this power, supposedly our servants. But it doesn't feel that way.
Are you still wondering their children are not in Nigeria?
No, they're not in Nigeria.
Most of the families are not here in Nigeria, and then where they stay, where they live, if you've seen their entourage, they're surrounded by.
Everything about their life is subsidized. They have escorts, they have different allowances here and there. Everything about them is subsidized.
They don't go to buy petrol by themselves.
They don't go to buy petrol. You don't know the stress of getting the fuel. Talk more of the amount of getting the fuel.
Out,
so it's quite challenging.
How would they know? I'm sure most of them don't even know how much petrol stations sell this fuel. Because they don't go to buy it themselves. They don't use their money to buy this petrol. So they don't know. They won't feel it.
They hear it on the news. Well, talking about the news, it's a very angry morning, although I started on a blessing note, or blessing note. But I think we're not just in that good mood anymore, talking about the situation of the country.
I can't wait for a day you start on a positive note and we end on a positive note.
One day it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
We look forward to that, really. We are very hopeful for Nigeria, but all hands must be on deck. Now, let's see what's going on. The dailies this morning. Let's check out the paper headlines this morning. We have several papers to look at this morning. We'll probably talk about some of these headlines, but there are lots of them here. Vanguard, The Guardian, The Punch, Daily Trust, Daily Independent, Nigerian Tribune. We have the Daily Times, The Nation, the New Nigerian Telegraph. All these papers are going to be looked at this morning and their headlines. So we start up first with the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard captures the big headline there. Ajero, nobody is above the law. That's coming from the federal government. I told you, blessing.
Yeah, the federal government should tell that to themselves.
And told you the bandit leader they are going after.
Exactly.
At the top strip, in deepening its capital market, Nigeria raises over $900 million 5-year inaugural domestic FGN US dollar bond. That sounds okay. And then we'll look at the story just underneath the photo speaker. We see a flooded area. It says agony as flooding wreak havoc in Maiduguri. But the story under that says bandit leader Bello Turuji, others will soon be captured. Well, their offices have not been invaded, but they would soon be captured. The Vanguard has less this morning. These are the headlines making the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Okay, I'll tell you that I don't like the headlines I'm seeing from the Guardian newspaper, but I'll take them. Let's look at the Guardian newspaper now. This major headline is very, very sad one. It says, fears of fatalities as Borno Dam collapses, displaces 500,000. That is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. That's the major headline. And then we have this one on page 8. Army denies fresh invasion of Okwama, says it is routine military operation. Now, the report I heard, some persons were actually killed. Well, we'll wait for all the details to be out. But here the military are denying the fresh invasion of Okwama and saying that it is just a routine military operation. Wonderful. Okay, editorial page 15 has this headline: petrol pump price hike, a failure of leadership. Nigerians are disappointed. Are Ona Kankafo tells Tinubu. That's on page 5. Federal government rolls out free CNG kits, 230 naira per litre gas. That's on news page 9. Obi Oti writes INEC over LP caretaker committee. That's on news page 3. And the last headline on the Guardian newspaper says, Abuja residents groan over restricted access to 40,000 naira rice. I just wonder why they're making this thing difficult for Nigerians. If you really want to give this bags of rice to Nigerians to ameliorate the suffering, why make it difficult?
I don't support the giving any bag of rice in the night. Let Nigerians buy the rice at 500,000 naira if they should buy it at 5. Because it's just palliatives, and they don't really save the situation. They don't. Yeah. They just postpone the problem. It's like taking paracetamol for malaria and thinking that your malaria will be cured. You'll just have it later on again. Let's look at the next paper for review this morning. We have the Daily Times newspaper, Daily Independent newspaper next this morning. And here the headline says, DSS arrested Ajaero over alleged terrorism financing, treason. Told you, blessing. The writer said, Presidency rejects TUC UK allusion of rights violations in Nigeria. And the other writer says, we regret not joining hunger protests in August. It's coming from the NLC. Pardon me, I had to laugh at that. At the top strip, 3 years after, NCAT's 18-month course students, pilots, yet to graduate. Tinubu's oppression surpasses harshest military dictatorship, coming from Atiku. Nobody has compared democracy and military in a very long time than our one-time democratically elected vice president. We'll look more at the papers. Gilbert poll, Edo government raises the alarm over arrest of PDP leaders. Gilbert poll, Edo government raises the alarm over arrest of PDP leaders. FG deploys NEMA to Borno over flood disaster. Customs tightens surveillance at borders to halt petrol smuggling. Military restates capacity to protect Nigerians in joint cooperation. We have restored confidence in Nigeria's economy, says Tinubu. The writer says, which rate subsidy removal will free resources from critical investments. The church will say, amen. And final story here at the bottom strip, reports of Peter Obi's arrest by DSS, baseless. It's coming from an aide, of course, I'm sure, to the federal government.
All right, let's look at the Daily Trust newspaper now. The Daily Trust newspaper has this headline that is so sad, just like NIMET predicted. We're having flooding in parts of Nigeria. So the major headline says flooding, over 200,000 displaced, children missing in Maduguri, the riders, corpses float as cemetery washed away, houses, Shehu's palace, hospital submerged, crocodiles, snakes escape into communities. Shetima consoles victims as Zulum reopens IDP camps. That is on pages 3, 4, 10, and 11 of the Daily Trust newspaper. At the top strip, we have Ajaero's arrest, violation of trade union freedom. This is coming from the UKTUC. Interesting.
That's why another guy reacted, I told you.
Yes. And then we have Nigeria's crude oil production rose to 1.352 million in August, says OPEC. Israel kills 248 Palestinians in safe zones as rights groups condemn siege. That is on page 8 of the Daily Trust. And then we have at the bottom strip, 125,517 terrorists, family members surrendered. This is going from the DHQ.
Okay.
Retired judge charged with assaulting neighbor's wife. That's on page 22. Youths block road over killing of charcoal dealers in Bauchi. 5 bandits killed. Corpses dumped in FCT community. That is the last headline from the Daily Trust.
Okay, we'll look at our next paper this morning. After the Daily Trust, we have here the Daily Independent newspaper. The big story, of course, everywhere. DSS arrested Ajaero over alleged terrorism financing and treason. This is coming from, of course, the presidency. We have more stories here. We'll just look at our next paper. I think we've looked at the Daily Independent.
Yes, we have.
Let's look at the Nigerian Tribune newspaper now. Nigerian Tribune. Factors that will shape Edo governor election on page 17. The writer says Obaseki Oshomole war. Deputy governors are vote banks for PDP, APC. Edo South Central are battlegrounds. Election win-win for Edo Central. Financial strength, oratory prowess, personalities of candidates to play roles. Those are the writers to that story. And we have this one here, says thousands displaced as flood wreaks havoc in Maiduguri. At the top strip, $3.5 billion LNG. Shell accuses Venture Global of alleged wrongful earnings as NLNG faces same offense. Two other stories right here on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Oil prices drop below $70 per barrel, exerting downward pressure on Naira. That's quite sad on page 6. And on page 18, blame Obi Oti for crisis in Labour Party. This comes from the Deputy National Chairman. That's on page 18 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. That's all on the Tribune.
Next is the Punch newspaper. The Punch has as major headline, Borno Dam collapse. Federal government opens IDP camps as flood submerges 70% of Maiduguri. That's on page 2. The rider, inmates escape, thousands displaced. Tinubu, NAS, governors pledge aid as NEMA begins evacuation. This is really sad.
Very sad.
At the top strip we have why NNPC may not lift Dangote petrol on Sunday. We are tired of this NNPC Dangote issue. The writer says fuel importers fear domestic production. This is coming from the Refiners Association. Why are they scared of domestic production? That's on page 19. You can find details on page 19. This other one says Southwest governors to spend 266 billion naira on airport projects. That's on page 22. And then we have this headline. It says Edo governorship poll. INEC ready for free fair poll. Yakubu declares. That's on page 16. And still on that page we have Obi canvasses votes for Akpata in Benin. At the bottom strip we have Lagos Red Line train to transport 150,000 passengers daily. That's on page 20.
Wow.
10,000 new recruits for deployment February 2025, says the police. We need them. We need more men in the police and other security agencies.
Yes.
If that's going to help them,
Maybe
then
state
they should
police
recruit as many as they can. That's on page 7. And then the last headline, 70,000 naira wage. NYSC awaits federal government directive on new corpus pay. That's on page 7.
All right. We await for the federal government's directive on a directive that's supposed to have been given already. It's okay. We'll look at the next paper this morning. It's the Daily Times newspaper. The headlines here. Borno flooding, displaced wild animals. Humans struggle for space in Maiduguri. Quite sad. Animals and humans struggling as one. The writer says prison inmates break free as stakeholders call for emergency action. Floods, most catastrophic in 3 decades. This assertion is coming from the Vice President Shetima. At the top strip, presidency denies TUC's human rights abuse claims, says Nigeria governed by law. HOR to develop policy document to enhance quality electricity delivery. On page 9. On page 5, Governor Oborewori's aid in murder allegation. We'll find out more on that. Our reporters will have to look out for that story. On page 10, we have Edo 2024 Obaseki, APC trade blame over possible electoral violence. Page 17, FG, Google unveil 100 million naira AI fund to empower local startups. And I hope that that money will be channeled rightly. And that will create very great results. Ajero, oppression under Tinubu worse than military dictatorship, coming from former Vice President Atiku. And finally, on the Daily Times newspaper, on the most important strip, fans crack down on touting to boost passenger confidence. That's on page 14 on the Daily Times newspaper. That's all the stories on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
Let's see what the nation has this morning. The nation has its major headline. Federal government dollar bond attracts $900 million subscription. The rider proceeds for critical economic projects, says Edun. $3.5 billion LNG. Shell accuses Venture Global of alleged wrongful earnings as NLNG faces same offense. Abure, Yesufu, Igodalo, others ran Obi campaign funds. That's coming from
That's very interesting.
4. And then the writer says, candidates sidelined LP in financial matters. Why's the LP having so much issues?
There's so much issues, and they should have elections at Edo State. Should have it together.
Okay, we also have this one. Canada's student enrollment drops by 45%. Wow. The writer, new immigration policy unfavorable. That is on news page 3. And then we have Ajero. No human rights abuse in Nigeria, says presidency. I beg to disagree, Mr. President. And this one says, we are winning battle against bandits, oil thieves, says service chiefs.
Amen.
The writer says, terrorist capture imminent.
All right.
I would like to be so hopeful that indeed we are winning the fight against bandits and oil thieves. Okay, the last headline on the Nation newspaper, Edo 2024, PDP, APC clash over purported plan to make state ungovernable, and it's on page 5. Whilst Edo State, like the governorship election in Edo State seems to be quite
dramatic,
very dramatic.
Yeah.
From
because of past experience, Edo prided in how they said Edo will be Lagos during the last election. So I'm sure that that's the same narrative they want to have here. Yeah. But before we come here on the studio, let's see the last paper for review this morning. I beg indulgence of my presidential director. The New Telegraph newspaper has Borno flood, inmates flee as Maiduguri prison walls collapse. Sad. OPEC, Nigeria records highest boost in crude supply output. Then we go to the bottom strip. Labour leader not above the law, says presidency. Vanishing Naira. How inflation's making lower denominations disappear. That's on page 14. And I'll just take some more stories here. CRF reps order JAM to remit 3 billion naira to federal government. Why we raided Serap's offices by DSS. It was on the news this morning right here at Jobs Television. And finally here we have on page 6, nighttime light exposure might raise Alzheimer's risk. That's coming from a study on page 6 of the New Telegraph newspaper this morning. Those are all the stories that we have here on our paper headlines. Let's get back to the studio. Look like Bessie and I have been itching to talk about some of these stories. But then shout outs to the federal government again for maintaining a strong position that no one is above the law. This is what we want to hear in Nigeria.
We know
and that's a reaction to the Ajero's detainment, that he's not above the law. Mind you that Onanuga said some things that were quite interesting. He said that even former president of the United States of America was held there in America. I know he was trying to react to international attention on that issue when he said that even Donald Trump, former president of the United States, was summoned, detained in the United States. So who is Joe Ajero? Who's the number one worker in the country to speak when former president of the United States was apprehended, was held, detained? We have not gotten one former president of Nigeria, though, detained. We have
former governor.
We've not seen any governor in recent times detained. Looks like a very peaceful,
Bayo Onaniga is just doing his job. I think we should stop talking about Bayo Onaniga, because Bayo Onaniga coming out to say these things, I don't think he's saying them for now. Like you said, he's not saying it because Nigerians want to know. He's saying it because this Ajero's case captured the attention of the UK TUC, and they had, if you read one of the headlines I read out, they actually spoke about it, and so it's just to save the federal government's face. So Bayo Onaniga is not saying things as it is. Now, we know that nobody's above the law. The federal government do not need to tell us that nobody's above the law, or tell the international TUC or anybody that nobody's above the law. We know that nobody is above the
That's how
law.
it should be.
But the federal government should lead by example. They should lead by example. If there's anybody who has, been accused or there are allegations against those persons, they should start with former governors who should by now they should be arrested, tried, and prosecuted.
Yes.
So they should start by leading. They should lead by example, not tell us that nobody's above the law because of the TUC president. Even if he goes to UK for that conference, he's going to come back, or he's not going to stay there forever and refuse to come back.
Back in
So all those others.
back in training school,
DSS.
we're told that to be a good broadcaster, a good newscaster, you must rehearse your scripts before you come on set. Because some of these stories are laughable. The first day I read that story concerning Comrade Joe Ajero's arrest, it was almost laughable, no matter how much I had read the story, because it was just funny. It sounded as though he was running
for him to leave his house.
Well, they was running to the airport, lesson. He was running, like they were chasing him. They ran to the airport and they catch him, in Nigerian parlance. So get that man before he escapes. It sounded very, very funny what's going on in Nigeria, how they could go for him. It looked like you shut that man up, he's talking too much. It also looked like, the president had been planning there have been several plans on the way. For instance, let's talk about the fact that fuel prices escalated this period. Is it not funny? Is it coincidental that this same period, people who would have been vocal about such situations were apprehended? One of them, NLC President Joe Ajero. Another, Serap, that always calls the presidency and the federal government. They were invaded. It looks like anyone who would speak or who would have spoken about it will be shut up. It doesn't matter the fact that we'll be hearing that they have been summoning different key players in the fuel sector to talk about why the prices have gone so high. It doesn't matter the fact that Nigeria is going to go through one of the worst, one of the most devastating inflation that the country would ever face due to this absurdity in the price of fuel, which would have not been absurd if we were a global standard. If Nigerians were earning like their colleagues or their friends earn, contemporaries earn outside the country, perhaps 2,000 naira, 2,500 naira price of fuel would have not been a problem per se. It would have not been inflation. It would have just been realistic, because our money would have had a little integrity, and you'd have not been hearing that fuel is, 1,005, 1,002. It would have been 700, 600 if our money value was important. Remember that the dollars is what defines how these prices go here and there.
Francis.
All these things don't matter really, but just get Joe Ajero because he's financing terrorism without any pure evidence that people could see. If you are invading that man's office, you should have everything it takes to show the country your steps that are to be taken next.
Francis, the way the DSS, the police, they're going about this, they like you said, it's laughable. This same Joe Ajero was invited by the police, remember, was invited by the IGP, and for 1 hour he was grilled. Now, is it that they don't have this fact? If you're accusing someone of financing terrorism, if you're accusing him of felony and other criminal activities, you should have facts before, calling the person or wanting to arrest the person. He was invited by the police. So are they trying to say that during that investigation, that 1 hour grilling, they could not find anything to hold him, to say, okay, we think we need to hold you, we need to make more investigations. So why is the DSS still going after the NLC president?
How many times?
Are they testing the patience of the TUC and the
How many
NLC?
times? Because when Onanuga, sorry, blessing, I will mention Onanuga's name.
I don't think we should mention
When Onanuga was talking about Donald Trump, because while he's doing his job, he should be tactical about his job. He should use common sense too while discharging his duties. Donald Trump was summoned. Yes, quite all right. How many times do you have to summon someone on a particular matter?
That's the question.
Without really holding the person.
Or
Or take him to court.
facts. After that 1 hour grilling, they just came out and they said this is the reason why we called him. That's all. They didn't come out to say, okay, this is the outcome of the investigation. We think the NLC president is not guilty of this crimes, because that's a serious allegation. Terrorism financing, felony, it is very serious. And if I was the NLC president, I wouldn't have let that go just like that.
It's not a joke, though.
It's not a joke.
And if, like you said, also for the part of Joe Ajero, you should, matter of fact, hold the federal government, to ransom. They must really put their hands on the exact point of terrorism financing.
And now he has been released. DSS has not said anything.
And let's also pay attention to the fact that if nobody's above the law, then the federal government should not be above its own laws, because defamation is also a section of the Nigerian Constitution. The 1999 Constitution has a problem, a section against defamation. Now, how's defamation done? If he's been held on the account of terrorism financing, and all the dailies this morning have mentioned it, that means they have defamed this man before the eyes of the right-thinking members of the public.
Yes.
Those
And
allegations could affect his business afterwards. When he is done with being an NLC chair, he would want to chair other businesses, other jobs too, and this could affect his integrity. So for Joe Ajaero, this is a very big call. You must take this matter seriously. You can't be held by the government and under the allegations that you were financing terrorism without the government making it clear to people how and where and when you were terrorizing or financing terrorism in the country.
The only one who's arrested. I'm certain that if one individual cannot just finance terrorism, he should have partners. He should have people.
Who are his partners? Who is he working with?
It can't just be one person, the NLC president, who's financing terrorism. Let's just say, okay, the police or the DSS, they have something against, they have something solid to hold him with. So is it just Joe Ajaero that's financing terrorism? Is it the only one who's related to the bandits?
Or maybe blessed, because I always play devil's advocate, which I hate to do right now. Maybe, perhaps, probably, maybe, possibly, they have been apprehending other personalities
without telling us,
without the press covering it, because Joe Ajaero is quite a big name. Maybe they should work on their media coverage. If that's the case, maybe they should bring up issues like that where other terrorism financiers are being detained and held. Detailed information on that, so the Nigerian populace could understand. And mind you, the DSSU owe Nigeria all this kind of information, because there's an FOI bill that is now enacted as a law in Nigeria. Freedom of information. We need to know what you're doing. If you're invading offices in the country that are sensitive to Nigerians, because mind you, Serap is the sweetheart of Nigerians. All the while, this particular group has been going all about this country, dragging the president, dragging the federal government to court over actions that are not humane. And this particular group is not just a Nigerian group, it's globally recognized. Let's pay attention to that. Doing their job, you're invading their office, it's like invading the Red Cross office. And that's also what we're going to see one day. One day we'll just hear that perhaps the Red Cross were trying to attend to victims of war, and then the DSS invades the office, because why? How dare you check victims of war?
That's what's going on. The law says the federal government, but I think the security agencies are above the law.
Yeah, because
they do things,
and they're not. But
they ought not to
on
do.
this ground, let's say,
they trample on the fundamental rights of
Ajaero should drag them to court too.
He should.
He should take them to court, because I don't understand the concept. If they are saying he's financing terrorism, and if he's not saying anything, they say silence is consent. If he's not saying anything about that, if we're just hearing the labor union talk about how they want to check his health status and know if he's all right, if they have poisoned him one way or the other, that's not enough. Check that, but also check the federal government, so they understand how to act next time. Not just the federal government, I mean the DSS particularly, so that before they act, they should think about it.
I really don't know what the heads of these agencies are doing. The head of the EFCC, head of the DSS, the IGP. I really don't know what they're doing, really. And special advisors to the federal government, I don't know what they're doing. They just occupy these offices. They don't know what they ought to do, because for your men to go to the airport and just arrest the Labour president like he's a nobody, it's really laughable, like you said. It's really laughable.
It's very laughable.
I think we should do something about it. Okay, let's look at the Guardian newspaper. I'll take two headlines. This one says petrol pump price hike, a failure of leadership. That's on the editorial page 6, and we have Nigerians are disappointed. Are Ona Kankafo tells Tinubu. That is on news page 5. Now, when Nigerians were, clamoring for a protest, when they were planning towards the hashtag End Bad Governance protest, the president came out, the federal government came out and said they understand the pains and sufferings of Nigerians. But I don't think that the federal government understands what Nigerians are really going through. You mentioned issues with the pump price of the increase in the pump price of petrol, but I don't think the federal government really understands what Nigerians are going through. And then we're hearing speculations here or there that some Nigerians are planning to come out October 1 to still protest because of what's happening in the country.
They'll be arrested.
They will be arrested, of course, and
anybody who matter of fact, if we even speak about it here, we might be arrested. That's the way the country is going. Anybody who speaks about protest now gets arrested. It is quite sad. Nigerians supported fuel subsidy removal via the elections. I'll explain why. I'll explain why. Because the three major political parties that were contesting, other parties were, but the three major ones, the APC, the PDP, and Labour Party, according to how the results went, all subscribed to removing fuel subsidy.
Okay.
And somehow, the majority of Nigerians were either going for the Trinity, APC, PDP, Labour Party, during the election. So, entire country subscribed to it. And
no, I beg to disagree. Now, we may have, because business analysts, newspaper analysts have come on this set to talk about the removal of petrol subsidy and how they think it's the way to go. But then, the question is, what was put in place?
I was headed there.
Okay, please go ahead.
My journey, I always start on that note. We subscribed to it, the three of them. We voted, the three of them. Majority of us. So if you do not vote for either, just a few very small, minor parties, I'm sorry to use the word minute, did not subscribe to it. And it looked like they were not intellectually sound enough not to have subscribed to it.
You just did not want to subscribe to it.
Somehow, one of a particular party, it's so bad I've forgotten the name, actually said, no, we're not, that's a very wrong move, we're not doing that, there should be subsidy. But Nigerians did not look at those parties. Maybe because we're not looking at the manifestos. Maybe because we're looking at who was more popular, who we loved most. In short, it was funny that when people were arguing, I wasn't in a particular spot where people were having a very strong argument, and somebody was yelling about Tinubu's removal of fuel subsidy, and somebody said, who were you going to vote? And the person said Labour Party. He said, but Peter Obi said he was going to remove subsidy. So Nigerians did not pay attention to the manifesto. But that's not the problem. That's the way I'm driving to.
Okay.
What I'm driving to is this. I have been given positions as a leader. And Blessing, I'm sure you've done that too. And there have been dispositions and assertions we have made we're going to do. But along the line, when things aren't working right, there comes a point in time where we have to review our previous assertions. Either because these particular decisions were our mistakes, and I will explain how this might be the mistake of the presidency. We remember that the first day he gave a speech, he said, I will remove fuel subsidy. We have on this show asserted that was a very flippant, flippant thing for the president to have done. To have said that on the first day, he was assuming office as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We saw how that made inflation, how that made fuel stations, shut down, and they were increasing their prices immediately, trying to reflect on the removal of fuel subsidy, and how that has affected Nigeria. So somehow that's mistakes of the presidency for his part, but they have refused to accept that was any mistake. They have, matter of fact, loaded him for being courageous enough to do what other presidents could not do. A president, for instance, like Goodluck Jonathan, who was opposed to people said, don't remove fuel subsidy, you're a wicked man. And the number one man who moved or canvassed for that movement is the current president who had the courage to remove fuel subsidy. And this conversation is just steaming very long. It moves on to how far we have now still gotten in Nigeria again, that the prices have gone so high, but no one is looking at it and saying, is this even right for Nigeria? Did the federal government look at other alternatives while trying to remove fuel subsidy? It has been noted, that part of the biggest crimes in subsidy removal was the fact that people were selling fuel, were taking money for fuel they did not sell. And that affected the whole concept. So corruption really ate deep into the fuel subsidy removal. That was not tackled. What was tackled was remove fuel subsidy. And Nigerians were meant to suffer from the inefficiencies of the federal government.
Yeah, the thing is, when you were saying that Nigerians subscribed for the removal of petrol subsidy, I was about to say...
They don't want it again.
No, I was about to say that again. When we, most Nigerians were supporting either of the three presidential candidates that were quite popular. The thing is, we may have supported them, but I'm not sure Nigerians expected the petrol subsidy removal to go this way. We did not expect the announcement to have been made without any plans, any tangible plans being put in place. So I think that the federal government should have asked themselves, is the country really ready for the after effects of the removal of petrol subsidy? Have they been able to think within themselves to say, okay, what do we put in place to make sure that when petrol subsidy is removed, this and this can help the citizens, it can help them navigate through with this particular huge change, because we're seeing that this is a big change that has happened in the country and has affected Nigeria badly. We cannot deny, the federal government cannot deny it. Even if the president comes to tell us that, oh, it's going to work, look at what is happening in the country. Nigerians, we need some form of relief right now. So we may have supported any of the presidential candidates, but we did not subscribe for what is happening right now.
I'm not a lover of palliatives. Every time people talk about palliatives, when you talk about the bags of rice, I'm not
talking about bag of rice. I'm saying they should have thought about other ways.
I'm trying to talk about the whole concept of ways to help. The way to help is to do something that would change the situation. If you're a doctor and the only thing you give
subsidy, it's not a must you remove it during the first 1 year or first 2 years.
The mistake has been made. But look at this headline about Lagos. The Lagos Red Line train to transport 150,000 passengers daily. That was on the Punch newspaper. Things like this should have been put in place. If you cut off transportation issues in Nigeria, just like the Lagos State government might have been doing now, the Lagos Red Line train to transport 150,000 passengers daily. That's taking a lot of problems from Nigerians and Nigeria. If you help electricity, the devastating effect of electricity, you saved the problem too.
Exactly.
If you also subsidize production, the cost of production in the country, you have saved the problems that would have come from all of fuel subsidy. If you could not handle or tackle the cabal who were, causing problems in fuel subsidy regime or era, then you should have tackled other areas too.
Exactly. Why remove petrol subsidy when no plans were made at all? You just said it.
And we've had analysts come here to some elitists. I wish they could come here again. I'm sure that many people would. And the problem with Nigerians is that people like to say, I said it. And people like to stick to their guns. So you find very few people say, oh, what I said was wrong. I do not understand how it's going to be.
No, Francis,
just trying to say I said it.
The removal of petrol subsidy is not bad. The question is, like I said, is the country ready for the removal of petrol subsidy? The removal of petrol subsidy has its advantages, but where we are right now as Nigeria, as the country, we are not ready for the removal of petrol subsidy. And unfortunately, our leaders are not ready to handle the after effects. And that's what we're seeing now. So those who supported the removal of petrol subsidy did not say the president should have announced it that way. Did not say he should announce it during his 1 year in office. Did not say he should announce it without being prepared.
1 day in office.
So that is it. So removal of petrol subsidy, it's not really a bad thing. The question is, when you're removing the petrol subsidy, what next? You should ask yourself, what are we going to do next?
And also the presidency, they need to cut the cost of their own living, and let Nigerians see it show.
Thank you, that's the issue.
That's one of the things we need to see.
The cost of governance in the country. It's something else.
It's something that we have how many ministries of agriculture? We have Ministry of Agriculture, have Ministry of Livestock. It's quite funny. It's quite sad. But if we talk about that, we'll take a whole day, whole morning, and so we must move.
Yeah, Daily Trust has this headline, away from politics. I think we should take a break from politics and talk about what's happening in Maiduguri. Very, very sad story.
The flood, yeah.
Over 200,000 displaced, children missing in Maiduguri. And so many writers to that story. Over 70% of Maiduguri has been submerged. Francis?
Maiduguri has been a place that has gone through a lot in Nigeria. If it was a person, you give them a hug and say, I'm sorry, the country is not just working right for you. Very sad. It's just sad to see this story, matter of fact. And also, another sad part about the story is that prisoners also escaped. So you're talking about a very terrible place now, where there are lawless people around, animals also trying to find the ground.
And they won't stay in Maiduguri because over 70% has been submerged.
Yeah, so they will drown. The result of effect will be on the entire country. And the whole thing is about the dam collapse.
Yes, the Borno dam collapse.
So it then gives the question, what has been going on with maintenance? Things don't just suddenly break down. There are always signs.
And NIMET gave this warning that there's going to be terrible flooding this year. So what was the state government or the federal government, we'll call on both of them, well, what were they doing? What preparations were they putting in place to, that's the question. That's the thing about this country. We are not proactive.
No.
We are reactive in this country. We wait for things to happen before we act. NIMET, since the beginning of this year, have been singing. They've been talking about the flooding that will happen this year. State governors, what do they do? What do they do to prepare for this flooding? And like you said, the Borno Dam, how have they been maintaining the dam over the years? Because things don't just, collapse, or things don't just break just like that. How are they being maintained? Now look at the havoc that has been wreaked on Maduguri. Children are missing. Humans and animals are struggling in Maduguri. Over 70%. If it's over 70% is almost, you know,
and that's a state capital, you know, the Borno state capital, Maiduguri. It's quite a very sad one. We need the country to be proactive. This is scary for all of us. We have dams in Nigeria, but nobody gives a damn about these dams until they collapse, until something bad happens to them. Every other time, there should be actions taken. Maintenance should be a culture. Yes. Also, improvement should be a standard. We should step up as a country, because this is just one of the things we're going to see more of these if we don't change our mindset, we don't change the way that we approach things. And people should be held for this, accountable for these. There are people who are in charge of that dam. They should be held totally for this, and they should be made to, you know, bear the resultant effect of what has happened. They should be tried afterwards, after all is said and done. But our heart really goes out to all those who were affected by that tragic incident. We cannot keep on complaining without saying how bad we feel that they had to go through that kind of terrible ordeal. Imagine being in your house, living your everyday life, and that happens like that. You know, when it comes to things like flood, water, some people even argue, those who faced water and flood challenges will tell you that fire is a little bit easier to handle. You know how to escape when you see fire. There's the way fire operates. You understand fire, but you see water, you would never understand how water works, because it comes it's more than an explosion. It comes very fast. If you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. It's quite scary. And the process of even those who might have even died from the incident is quite torturous. Nobody even knows how torturous it is, because they don't see burns. They just see swollen bodies. But it takes a lot of time before people die like that. Yeah. So when it comes to things like that, dams, sensitive things like this, it should be given serious priority attention. Else Nigeria will be in more devastation than we can ever imagine. Yeah. It's quite a very sad story.
Our heart really goes out to the people and residents of Maduguri, and we do pray that relief materials are sent to those who have been rescued. IDP camps have been set up already, and then other state governors take a cue from this and make sure that they are prepared. They start preparing their states ahead of the flooding that would happen this year.
All right, let's go on a break. We'll be back shortly.